morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on when you're watching this presentation. Today we're going to be talking about states' rights, and I noticed when I listened to my stuff from yesterday that it went in and out. So I'm going to check this before I do it. Okay. So I actually took this from a history site. Okay, and this is a conversation that happened between Andrew Jackson and John C. Calhoun at the Jefferson presidential dinner at the White House. So what it was people wanted Jackson to give states the right to nullify a law. In other words, if the federal government passed a law, that they could just disobey it. And so at this dinner, this presidential dinner, I believe it was 1832. Is that what it says? Yes, 1832. Jackson, they had several people stand up and give toasts about states' rights. And so Jackson stood up and said, our federal union, it must be preserved. To which Calhoun, who was his vice president, got up and said, uh, the union next to our liberty, the most dear. So that was kind of like a face-off between the two of them. And not long after that, Calhoun resigned as vice president. He's the only vice president other than Spiro Agnew to resign. And Martin Van Buren became vice president. So how does this all happen? Well, the country was into what's called sectionalism. So first off, there's the North, then there's the South, then there's the West. So what can we say about the North? Well, they're into manufacturing, they're into shipping, and they want the products they manufacture to be protected. So they charge tariffs. The South is into cash crops, especially cotton, and they want slavery, which is their labor force, to be protected. So they do not like tariffs because when you charge a tax on a country, usually that country charges a tax on you. And so they did not want tariffs because they felt like Great Britain, for instance, would impose a tariff also. Then we have the West. So the West is kind of straddling the fence between both sides. On one end, the West wants further expansion. They want to go further and further out into what the continental United States. On the other hand, they're not too keen on slavery, and they're really not doing cash crops. So they're kind of on both sides of the fence. So what happened with the nullification crisis? Well, Calhoun State, South Carolina, did not like the tariff and said, hey, look, I'm not paying the tariff. And if you don't like it, we'll secede from the Union. Jackson was hot, boy. When they said they were going to secede from the Union, he sent federal troops. He was going to invade South Carolina. Now, before this all happened, Henry Clay negotiated a lower tariff rate. And so South Carolina backed down and Jackson backed down. And as a result, South Carolina did not secede from the Union in 1832. So we could have had the whole Civil War 20 years earlier. Now, it's interesting. President Trump, I believe the first year he was elected, was standing in front of a portrait of Andrew Jackson and said, well, if Andrew Jackson had been around in 1860 and had been president, we wouldn't have had the Civil War. Well, guess what? He was right, but he was wrong about the date. It was 1832 that Jackson avoided the Civil War, but he didn't do it in a nice way. He sent troops in to straighten everybody out. But of course, Henry Clay came out as the nice guy. So, who was John C. Calhoun? Well, okay, he was vice president for John Quincy Adams and Andrew Jackson. He's the first vice president born as a U.S. citizen. He's the first vice president to resign from office and in favor of slavery, states' rights, and limited government. So, what's our questions for today? Well, they're quite easy. The first question is from CNN 10. Um, what city has the name Victorious? Okay, so if you were to take its name and translate it into English, it would be Victorious. So what city is that? What state almost seceded from the Union because of the tariff? Okay, who was John C. Calhoun? Wow, it's sitting right there. And then define nullification. So, have a great day, and I hope this came out right.